What's going on, everybody? Well, Wonder Woman was released this weekend. I've got my full review for that movie if you want to check that out. And now it is time to rank all of the DCEU movies. We got 4 of them now, so that's plenty to do a ranking. And woo, this is going to be an interesting ranking. So, starting off at the bottom, it's probably going to surprise some of you if you've been following me for a while. Number 4 is Suicide Squad. Now, when Suicide Squad first came out, I still had the bad taste in my mouth from Batman v Superman, but I was really looking forward to Suicide Squad. I had a lot of faith in David Ayer. I had a lot of faith in the actors involved. The Joker design didn't bother me too much. I didn't really have a whole lot of baggage about that going into the movie. I was a little worried that Will Smith might overtake the movie, but still, I was like, okay, Suicide Squad is going to be cool. And when I went and saw the movie in opening weekend, I really liked it. If you go back to my podcast days, I actually gave it a see it in theaters. So I really liked that movie. I thought the Jared Leto Joker was cool and unique. I thought that Will Smith did overtake it a little bit, but he was entertaining enough and he was charismatic enough where it didn't bother me so much. I loved Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Really, the only negative was the main negative that everybody talks about was the Enchantress. And something happened. The movie came out on video. I watched it again, the extended cut, and I liked the movie less. And I know that I harped on the extended cut, adding some things that actually took away from the movie. So then I watched the theatrical cut a couple of months later, and I liked the movie even less. So all of a sudden now I'm watching the movie, and the things that I like are no longer as good, and the things that didn't bother me suddenly bother me so much more. The Enchantress especially is one of the worst villains in any comic book movie ever. The story is really bad. I mean, the story, there's no secret that they gave David Ayer like 6 weeks to write this whole movie, and it shows. I mean, there's so much that could have been done so easily just by making the Joker the main villain. And really, the only thing that I watched this movie for is for some of the fun performances. The music, can't stand the music. The way that the first half of this movie is just like a constantly rotating music video. It's like they saw Guardians of the Galaxy and they said, we got to put classic rock into this movie. And the way that they do it is like every single scene, it's almost like they just start a classic rock song, and when the scene changes, they stop it. The way I describe the scene, or the first half of the movie, is like if you're riding in a car with somebody and they've got a classic rock, greatest hits soundtrack, and they listen to the first 30 seconds of the song and they lean over and hit skip. And then the next 30 seconds and they lean over and hit skip. And they skip and skip. And you're sitting there in the passenger seat like, just fucking pick a song. That's what the first half of this movie is like for me. And the second half is when all the problems really show up. So the movie's just a gigantic mess. I really hope that they pull it together to do a Suicide Squad 2. But this movie's hard to get through for me now. I really, really liked it when I first saw it. And now it's barely watchable for me. So it's definitely the bottom of the barrel, and that is why it is number 4 on the DCEU list. Number 3 is the movie that was at the bottom of my DCEU list, especially when I first saw it in theaters, but suddenly now I rewatch it, and it's the opposite effect of Suicide Squad, especially when I watch the ultimate cut of Batman v Superman, which is my number 3. Every time I watch it, I like it a little bit more. The things that didn't really stand out to me start to stand out to me a lot more as far as positives and really things that the movie did really well that I didn't maybe give it enough credit for when I first saw it. And then things that really bothered me a little bit less. So it was a weird kind of shift how Suicide Squad I loved and Batman v Superman I fucking hated. And now all of a sudden it's like they've reversed their roles. And now Batman v Superman I actually like quite a bit when I watched the ultimate cut. And Suicide Squad I can barely watch. So Batman v Superman, and what more can you say about it? Bruce Wayne, Ben Affleck is awesome. I think that the ultimate cut, I'm going to talk strictly about the ultimate cut, guys, because that's really the only cut of the movie that I will ever watch ever again. The theatrical cut is garbage, so that movie doesn't even exist to me. The ultimate cut, Superman is a lot better. You get to see his struggle, trying to find his place in the world, trying to figure out, I'm trying to save these people, but nobody is accepting me. Do I even need to bother saving them anymore? What is my place in this universe? That's a really interesting question to ask because it's a really realistic take on Superman. Lex Luthor is horrible. That doesn't change. But there's some elements of Lex Luthor that I like. Like the one scene that I like of Lex Luthor is when he's talking to Holly Hunter. And he's like, hey, he's all the goofy, maniacal, and weird and everything like that. And then all of a sudden she says something to set him off, and he just kind of looks down and then looks up. And you see that turn. And he's the maniacal, evil Lex Luthor. That's the one scene that I like. If they had harnessed that, it would have been better. But Lex Luthor sucks. The Martha moment, still a big problem for me. Really poor execution. Everything in the final act involving Lois Lane on that fucking spear drives me nuts. Batman tries to kill Superman with the spear. She grabs the spear, throws it away, comes to Superman's rescue. Then all of a sudden, Superman and Batman are off fighting things. Lois Lane takes the spear, throws it into the water for some reason. Then all of a sudden, they all realize they need the spear. So she goes back to try to get the spear out of the water, falls in, starts to drown. Superman pulls the thing off, saves her, brings her and the spear up. She takes the spear, throws it over to the side, and then tries to comfort Superman once again. It's like, what the fuck are you doing with the spear? Leave the spear alone. And now that I've said that, if anybody has not noticed that, now that I've said it, it's going to drive you nuts every time you watch the movie. But the action scenes are awesome, especially that warehouse fight. That's the best Batman scene that's ever been put on film. I honestly think that warehouse fight. If it wouldn't have been in the trailer, I would have been losing my mind. A lot of the story directions, where it sets up the universe, as far as like Superman, the death of Superman storyline, I feel like it was too soon. A lot of the elements of this movie are too soon. That's what really holds it back for me. Some of the execution as far as kind of balancing all of these things, balancing Bruce Wayne, balancing Superman, balancing Lex Luthor, trying to throw in Doomsday at the end, plus bring in Wonder Woman, plus set up Justice League wants to come. It's a really, really big toss-up of a bunch of big elements that should have been 3 or 4 movies later on whenever it came. We should have got all the origin stories, then we should have got BVS. It would have had a lot less baggage, would have ended up being a lot better film, but I enjoy it a lot more now that I watch it. So it's my number 3. I still consider it to be kind of a big missed opportunity for that storyline, but I enjoy the movie a lot more than I did. Number 2. Now, if you watched my Wonder Woman review, you saw me say it a couple times about I don't know if this is quite good enough to beat out Man of Steel for me, but I'm going to give Man of Steel one more watch and decide, because I really like Man of Steel. So number 2 on my DCEU ranking is Man of Steel. I actually like Wonder Woman a little bit better than Man of Steel now. I can't believe I'm saying that. But Man of Steel, I know a lot of people are mixed on this movie. It's my favorite Superman movie by far. I've never really been a big fan of the Christopher Reeves movies. That's never really been... The cheesy elements of it have never really spoke to me. I didn't grow up watching them, so I've never been a big fan of that style of Superman. I've never really been a big fan of the character of Superman at all, if I'm being completely honest. Even when it was like the animated All-Star Superman, as a kid, I never really gravitated towards him. I was always a Batman freak. Man of Steel made me a Superman fan. I liked the realistic take. I liked the more... darker take on Superman, the more real world take. I liked Michael Shannon as Zod a lot. I love the dynamic of having the two fathers and the two ideologies kind of battling within Superman. You got the, Jor-El, and then you got Pa Kent, both telling him things, and he kind of has to have some kind of a mishmash of their values to make who he is. I really like the action sequences. I have no problem with the fact that the whole third act of this movie is all destruction. It makes sense to me. If you have 3 aliens coming down to basically terraform Earth, and Superman is just kind of discovering how he's going to utilize his powers to defeat them, you're gonna have destruction. So I never had a problem with that, and I think it really gives a good setup for the world to come of, the realistic questions that you would ask if an alien came down who could do all the things that Superman asks. If there was destruction, you would be asking the questions they asked in BVS. Is he here to kill us, or is he here to save us? Do we need to monitor him, or do we need to let him do what he does? So I like all of that. I like Lois Lane. I don't really care for the fact that they kind of skip over the actual romance side of things between Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, but what they have in Man of Steel I really like. Perry Mason, Lawrence Fishburne, I like that character a lot. I like Diane Lane as his mother. A lot of things that I really like about this movie, but when I rewatch it, some of the things that I don't really care for so much, I like kind of the non-coherent way that they tell the story, where there's a lot of flashbacks and there's a lot of kind of a Tarantino style somewhat. They'll have flashbacks, they'll show the future, they'll show the past. I like that at first. There's some elements of that storyline when I watch it now that I feel like should have been a little bit more sequential. It should have been a little bit less of that convoluted storytelling. I think it would have ended up being a little bit better on some of those real emotional moments, especially the one involving Pa Kent's death. Now that's the one scene that I watch now, and it's a little bit harder for me to get through because it just seems so silly. When I first watched it, I kind of accepted it as, okay, he doesn't want the world to see his son's powers yet. He doesn't think the world is ready yet. So now Superman has to make that gut-wrenching decision of watching his father die when he knows he could save him at the drop of a hat, just because he knows that his father wouldn't approve of it, and he knows that his father believes that the world is not ready for you yet. That made sense to me at first. Now when I watch it, it's just like the Martha scene. The overall picture of that scene, I understand. I know what you're going for, and I can get behind it, and there's a way to do that perfectly, but the way that they execute that scene with the tornado, and now he runs right back out knowing full well that he's probably going to die just to save a dog and stuff like that, it seems really silly when I watch it. It seems like a very senseless death. And I watch it, and I'm like, why the hell, First of all, I don't care how big your values are. If Superman's my son, motherfucker, come save me. You know, there's a tornado, come get me. I don't care if the world's not ready or not, come save me. Beyond that, it just seems senseless. Why would you go out there just to say, I mean, I understand the whole, you know, people love pets, but I'm sorry, if there's a fucking tornado, I'm not worried about who the hell is out there, especially a dog. If it looks like everybody's ran away, I'm going. So that's where it kind of, that scene is just a little iffy for me. Some of the other things, as far as like the really scientific explanations for like the codex, the way that his suit works with his skin, the way that the sun kind of gives him his powers, I feel like there was a little missed opportunity there to make it a little bit more, lack of a better word, dumbed down. I feel like you really have to hone in on those details to understand what they're trying to give you there. I appreciate that, but I feel like that was a small missed opportunity. Maybe a longer cut. I'd love to see a director's cut of this movie, and a Zack Snyder ultimate cut of Man of Steel, unless what the theatrical cut is what his actual cut is. But just small little things in there that stand out to me now that I've watched it again. Not really big negatives at all, because I still love the hell out of this movie. It's one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. It just barely did not make my top 5 of all time. It was in my honorable mentions. But I really love Man of Steel. But my number 1, Wonder Woman, is just a little bit better. I just saw it this weekend, and Wonder Woman to me was just such a joy to watch, because not only is it finally, as a DC fan, seeing somebody who gets the character and who gets how to make these movies the right way and bring it to the screen and knock it out of the park, but just everything about this movie fires on all cylinders. The story is incredible. All of the acting is great. Gal Gadot knocked it out of the park. I've said it before, I fell in love with her in that movie. She was amazing. Chris Pine, great as always. Patty Jenkins directed it beautifully. I love the 3-act structure of it. You got your Sword and Sandals movie on Themyscira. One of the Themyscira Island is like a character in the third act of this movie. First act of the movie. It's so incredible to see it and to see what they brought from that island. And just like the joke that's made later on in the movie, you hear about this beautiful island full of women and you're like, how do you get there? So I love the first act of it. I love the kind of naivety of Diana Prince, how she's just so good down to her core that she wants to save everybody, but she doesn't realize all the flaws of humanity. And even down to the third act, when she's finally confronting Ares and she's confronting this villain that she has heard about from birth, the movie is no longer about her triumphing over this evil being. It's about her triumphing over her doubts about humanity and about the flaws of humanity, to realize that everything good about humanity is what's worth fighting for and is what's worth fighting through that doubt for. It is all of those really, really subtle, clever story elements that they blended into this really spoke to me. I thought the action sequences were incredible. I love the scene, probably the best scene in the movie, whenever they're in no man's land and she sheds all of her, you know, the garments and everything that she's wearing over the armor, and she just steps out on that ladder wearing the Wonder Woman suit, and she just runs into a hail of gunfire, and everybody is just inspired all of a sudden. They see her, and where they were despair and hopeless and thought that there was just nothing but death in the future, now they see this and there's hope. And that's the biggest word that I can give to describe Wonder Woman, is that it gives you hope, not only for the themes in the movie, not only for the people and the characters in the movie, but as a DC fan, it gives you hope for what they can bring in the future for these movies. Because if they give Aquaman, The Flash, Cyborg, you know, freaking Shazam, Black Adam, if they give all those individual characters to storytellers and directors with the talent of Patty Jenkins, and they give the amount of freedom that they gave Patty Jenkins, and they give the amount of care and love for those characters in these movies, we have got some insane movies in our future. So I have a ton of hope now for the future of the DCEU, when previous to this weekend, I was not very hopeful at all. All the crazy news coming out, the Ben Affleck leaving the Batman, all this drama, now all that's washed away. Now I see hope. So I absolutely loved Wonder Woman. It's just nudging out Man of Steel as my favorite DCEU movie, and that's why it's my number 1. So what is your guys' ranking of the DCEU? Are you a fan of these movies? Did you love Wonder Woman? What is your thoughts on Suicide Squad and Batman v Superman? Did they do that little switcheroo for you like they did for me? Put your ranking down in the comment section below, guys. And if you want to check out some of these movies and add them to your collection, I'm going to have the Amazon links down below. But please like and share this video and hit the subscribe button. And you can also check out some of my social media links like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and my new Patreon page by clicking down below. And also, if you want to check out some more videos, including some more ranking videos or my reviews on some of these films, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.